thing. Towards the futures. Futures are coming back down, not to a terrible degree, but they are coming down. Most likely a bounce here on 15 should be an ephemeral bounce. And after that, look at SPY. SPY hit the uh, highs of yesterday, not the highs, but the what do you call this thing? Resistance from yesterday and came right back down. Tried that again, came right back down. I think SPY will test this number 448.30 as futures are doing that and expecting futures to bounce temporarily and come right back down into this number. That's the case on the 15 minute, 44.91. Still not terribly down, but something to take a note of. Futures were down last night. I think it's at through about here till here. I was here. And then after that, whatever happened, and I think futures pushed up, right back down. Here, expecting this futures to again ephemeral bounce here and then break this mean, come right back down. And this is a very common scenario that we see often. It's becomes overbought, comes right back down into 1 hour mean. So this is what we see very often. Expecting the same thing from SPY, even though it's not overbought by any measure. Still expecting it to come back down to at least it's 21, 448.23. Here's the bounce spot, 448.60. Should that break, it should come back down into 44.20, 448.20. Then most likely a bounce here, but then we will look for a mean reversion or a regression to the mean. 447.36. Not pricing in that thing just yet, but want to see how it behaves at 448.23, which is at 21. And in this scenario, this time frame doesn't really mean much for SPY. I don't think it does mean much for the futures as well. So let's skip this time frame. And here's what I'm watching right now. So Doji is being created. So we knew yesterday it was going to go hit the mean, came back a little bit below the mean and pushed up. There's no surprises here. And today I'm expecting a push down into this 200 moving average again, 44.85, a test of 44.85. Then let's see how it behaves to the downside. If it bounces from here, we'll look for a push into this number again, 45.10. But if it breaks here, we'll look for the test of mean again. This time the mean is pushing up. 44.67 is the mean today. So if it bounces from where it is right now, then we're looking for a push into this 100 or 45.27, and we'll reassess the situation here. So to the top, my base case is 45.28. To the bottom, base case is 44.85. That's the range I want to be in. Post this range, we will figure out what needs to be done. Mean reversion, regression towards the mean, not out of the question, but it being Friday, cheaper contracts, that means more liquidity in the market. So be aware of that. SPY pushed up nice and easy yesterday, so we were looking for, so let's see. So to the upside, 449.29. That's the case to the upside, and to the downside, if it breaks below 4, this is what needs to happen right about here, 447.97. So this is where if it breaks, let's say 448, if it breaks below that, we will test this number 446.50 again. And if Apple gives up, and if Apple decides to go back to its mean, then we are again looking at the mean today, 445, somewhere around that range for SPY. Base case is very narrow today, 449.15 to the upside and 447.97 to the downside. It's very narrow today. simply because we have major moving averages. And if it breaks above 449.22, we are looking for a push into 450.18 to 450.62. And this, if you extend this line here, this should be some sort of a breather right here, 451.06. And if it clears that number too, then we are looking for a hit of 452.46. Or rather, let's round it up to 452.50. That's the case to the upside, and this is the case to the downside. Of course, this projected path will depend on which way VIX will go. VIX yesterday, let's, let's put up here. So VIX yesterday went all the way into its mean right about here. So yesterday we were looking for a hit of mean and we got the hit of mean. I was expecting a little further up towards 23.93 or 24. Did not happen. Hit the mean, came right back down. So, and it is testing its 200 now. Expecting a bounce around here, 21.05, if it hasn't already bounced. More likely an ephemeral bounce. And if it pushes up 2180, if it clears 2180, I'll be looking for a hit of mean again. Today, if you see the mean has come down drastically, 2315, somewhere around that number, 2315 to 2320. Day before yesterday, the mean was about here, 24. Yesterday, the mean was here. Today, the mean is here. So what does that mean? That simply means the technicals are coming down versus the price going up. So that means the VIX is not as strong. Whenever you see this kind of action where the technicals are coming down to the price or to the number, that means the number is relatively weak. Uh, so it comes back down, probably a hit here, 2317 something, then we will reassess the situation. But according to the thesis that it has entered this zone a couple of times, then looking for a hit of this number, 2463. Um, Today, maybe not, because again, it's going to be a OPEX day. So that means lower price options. So that means more liquidity or more volatility in the market. But towards the end of the day, most likely it should push into this number at least. That's what my expectation is. But if it breaks below 200 moving average, then we are looking for a downside. And most likely the markets will continue rally below 2080. Even till 2080, the markets, that's still close to a good 1 point. I think the markets will rally if it continues to break below it. Uh, Here is the number, 2170 something, 2130. This is where I'm expecting a bounce. If the bounce fails, I'll again look for a push into 21.8 and then break that number and push into 2080. If it breaks below 2080, then we're looking for a downside. And it is still pointing down. So uh, the only thing that I'm watching other than the immediate technicals is the MACD. MACD is starting to curl. So if that translates into a longer term push up, it's remain to be seen. But I don't know why would it do that. Um, the only thing that I'm seeing right now is elevated a 10-year. That is the only reason that I think VIX is holding this up. So wow, 10-year did this basically, 2.71. And that means weekly 0.71. So we were looking for this number yesterday, and this is the reason we were looking for this number, and it just cleared that number and pushed up. So if it continues its march, a violent move up, this is not going to be a good scenario for tech. Tech will get wrecked again. So if 2.72. Yep. And if the reason that tech is not giving up or so, um, I mean, it's not drastically down like it's supposed to be, is because of Apple, and that is holding up the index very well. Apple is not really tech, but yeah, you understand what I'm saying. Apple is not a tech company, but it is in Nasdaq, so the Nasdaq is holding up really good. Other than that, if you see any other company that's getting hammered, so watch out for this index, 10-year, 2.72 highs, and I think the last time it was here was back in about 19 March 19, and the highest we know. So this is where it stopped last time in 18. It hit that number and it came right back down. This was unusual push down, but it is testing that number again. If it breaks above this, most likely, which it will, maybe not today, but most likely during the next week sometime, when the Fed will raise interest rates, this will break above 200. This is a 200 monthly. It will break above it most likely, and then let's see what happens, how the market reacts to it. General playbook, if I were to say my interest rates goes up, growth stocks take a hit, but doesn't seem to be working. That thesis is not doesn't seem to be working as smoothly as it should have worked. You see Microsoft still at 300, Facebook still at 200. The smaller ones are getting crushed, but the big ones are still staying there, like Amazon, Google, Facebook. Netflix has to come back down at least another 100 points, but it's still sitting at 360, 350, whatever that number is. So I think there is a downside risk to or the tech, and I don't know why financials are not responding to this number here. I don't know what the financials are pricing in, but we will play accordingly. And on any bounce spots, we will play something like a Goldman Sachs or something like a XLF. XLF still has room to the downside, by the way. XLF still has room to the downside, most likely 36.87. And this is not how banks should be behaving right now. This is not how it
Just
should be behaving. Yes, sir.
to update you, futures are pushing low fast and VIX is up hard fast.
Yeah, we were just looking for this number, right? A
Yep.
break from here. We were
Yeah.
looking for this one, so no surprises there. And we were looking for a SPY to break this number and push into its this number here and look for a bounce around here. There should be a bounce, and the futures should come back down here. Should be a bounce for the futures. No surprises. If it comes back to the mean, rather it should bounce somewhere around here first, then should come back down to the mean and bounce. So no surprises. Everything is going according to what it's supposed to do. All right. So one thing that yeah. Yeah, the thing that I wanted to talk about was this primarily. This thing is threatening to push up, and I want to short the heck out of Nasdaq, but it is still holding. I still see at least 500 points down on Nasdaq. Where is that? Where is Nasdaq? I didn't open it. It seems like I did not open Nasdaq. Right, so Nasdaq right now, I think it should. I don't have futures, but futures don't really correlate to that. But if you open up there, Qs are pushing down, and we want to see the Qs come down to this number, 350 or something. So that means Nasdaq has to come back down again. If it can come down to this number and push up from here, that would be nice. Will that happen? Well, that will depend a whole lot on SPY or SPX rather. To see this thing further come down to this number 349. But Nasdaq does have a whole lot of support to hold on to, and it is kind of getting oversold here. So it has a lot of support to hold on to right now. Uh, but ideally speaking, the scenario that we discussed with IX with SPX, that it needs to come back down into its mean again, which is about here. And the good thing is technicals are pushing up rather than price coming down. Technicals are pushing up, so that's a good thing. This cycle needs to complete, and more than SPX, the cycle needs to complete for Apple. So Apple bounced off of its 21, give or take, and it needs to come back down into the zone again. And the mean is here, 168 something. So if Apple comes down to its mean, then the markets will obviously push down and Nasdaq will suffer more. But this thing is holding up the markets, and we just discussed the yield curve. So 2.71. This thing should not be good for tech. And the only tech that is holding markets up right now is Apple. Microsoft did complete its cycle to the downside and came back into the mean, completed the whole thing and pushed up. But still, Apple did not do it. So I'm expecting Apple to do that. Should people, kind of let the technicals play out, and not just buy any dip that they see. And people do that. People do that. They just see it coming down and buy it for no good reason. But this is what I'm expecting from Apple. So let's see to the base case 170.59, a test of 170.59 again, and should break. If should it break it this time, then we're looking for a push into this number 168.40. And lastly, let's see Tesla. Tesla had a nice run up yesterday. We were looking for that 170, whatever not. I went back to see the recording yesterday for Tesla. What were we projecting? I think we were projecting 1076 or something for Tesla, and push down into this number, 1020, whatever not. So I think Tesla full range, we hit the full range yesterday. And today, my expectation from Tesla is to test this number again. And this is a big if here. If uh, Apple comes back down. If Apple comes back down, Tesla will come back down to its number here. And this time, if it pierces here, we are looking for 1006 and a bounce here, ephemeral bounce, and then we are looking for it to push into its mean. This will happen if Apple comes back to its mean. These two are the ones that are behaving similarly, which are refusing to come back to its mean. So this needs to come. This is simple. This is simple regression. This is simple, linear regression, if you want, or rather revert to the mean, whichever language you want to use. That needs to happen. Come back to the mean, push up from here. Will it happen in a straight line? I don't believe so. But you just need to look for the technicals, what is happening on the lower time frames as well. But on the higher time frames, this is what is pointing down to. 1068 is still a possibility to the upside. And should that break 1008, everything is pointing down to this number. So let's see how it plays out. Uh, and let's see if we can get it down on the 1 hour chart. So yeah, this is coming down. Right now, so this theory still holds true. Comes into the zone, hits the mean, comes right back down. Have an ephemeral bounce, perhaps, and a push down into this number 1033. And let's see how it behaves here, right? Exactly here, how it behaves here. If it can jump up again here, clear 1057, and then we're looking up a push into 1068, 1070, and if it comes down from here, which looks like it will, then we're looking for a push into this number 1033. Right now, it is trapped below its 50 here. So let's see if it can come back down to 10 here, this number at least, 1040, and a bounce here. And seems like that would be a good bounce simply because it is getting overbought, oversold here. If it comes down here, hits this number, a bounce, and this needs to get resolved again for it to continue a push down. So we'll see how it works out. My base case would to the downside is 1040 or 1041, and my base case to the upside is this one 1069. And if it clears this number around 1061, let's see, that should not be the base case. This should be the base case. 1061 should be the base case to the upside, and to the downside 1041 is the base case. Yesterday we were looking for some stock that was UPST. So if it comes down to this number 8790 or something, we're looking for a bounce here. If you wanna play downside, you could try playing downside as well. But here, if it comes down to this number 87 something, it should be a bounce. Of course, market dependent, VIX dependent. Look for entries. If you find a good entry, go for it. You will get at least a couple of dollars out of this one. Netflix. eh, Netflix has done, the whole thing. It came back down to its number and pushed up. Netflix still looks vulnerable here to the interest rates. And if this gets resolved, I think we're looking for a push down on Netflix again. Uh, Netflix has support here. I think it's slowly. Netflix will have to come down to 300s and most likely go down here into 266. As we see the interest rates pushing up, I think Netflix is particularly vulnerable to those interest rates moving higher. Will it happen in a straight line? No, this will take time, but it will come back down. It will push down into 300s. Uh, and this will happen only if Apple can come down. This will happen only if Apple can come down. Without Apple coming down, it's not going to work out. The other thing that I'm watching is this thing, Bitcoin. Bitcoin gave up its gains, and this is usually how it works. It runs up into a major moving average. Usually, the 200 and the 50 are major moving averages. So it ran up into that major moving average, couldn't push higher, got overbought, and finally the MACD started to turn. It came right back down. So we are looking for a push a little bit, maybe ephemeral bounce, some sort of an ephemeral bounce here, then come back into this number. 41,800. This is where it should look for a bounce. So this should be a good bounce here. Ephemeral bounce, most likely into this number, 43.9 or something. Let's round it up at 44. Then come back down, and if it breaks down this number here, the one standard deviation, then it has to come back down to its 50. So wait for this push up, or you can play the push up as well. Maybe look for something like a Mara, and not just Mara. Look for something like MSTR. They just bought a whole lot of Bitcoin, a whole lot more of Bitcoin. I don't know why they are hoarding Bitcoin, but they bought Bitcoin. So micro strategy will be very sensitive to the Bitcoin price. Their balance sheet essentially is Bitcoin right now. So I don't know the reason behind it, but yeah. So MicroStrategy will be a very sensible, very sensitive to Bitcoin price. Bitcoin price pushes up by 2,000 points here. MicroStrategy price will push up accordingly. And if Bitcoin pierces through this number and comes back down to test 41,800, that will affect MicroStrategy. And for whatever reason, they are hoarding Bitcoin. I have no idea why, but that's what is happening. All right, guys. So let's break it here.